Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Grit and Grace podcast. I just had the most wonderful conversation with Jennifer Shike, who is a powerhouse in the pork and the swine industry and ag communications field, just a wonderful Midwest wife and mom, and it is so good. You guys are going to absolutely love it, period. So at the beginning of the podcast, we talk a lot about professionalism, professional journey, especially in the field of ag communication, and then towards the end, we really get into the grace part of what we want to feature. We're talking about life and family and faith, and it's so meaningful. So I hope you listen all the way to the very end. I hope you are as blessed by hearing this podcast as I was getting to talk to Jennifer. So here we go, Grit and Grace with Jennifer Shike. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grit and Grace. I'm Rachel Cottrell, this week's host, and today we have Jennifer Shike with us. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So Jennifer, you are our first official guest from the swine industry. And Jennifer is just a powerhouse in the agriculture world in the Midwest and really nationwide. She's the editor for the farm journal Pork. She has worked in the purebred swine world, in marketing and science communications, youth program, and just one of the leading voices in the agriculture industry. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I appreciate you asking. It's fun to be here with you, and I love what you're doing with the podcast.
Thank you. You host your own podcast, right?
I do. I started up the Pork podcast in October of 24 and kind of helping celebrate and kick off Pork Month. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been quite a journey.
Oh, that is awesome. So if you've listened before, we like to start each episode I don't know which episode is the right word, but we like to start each podcast with just a series of quick icebreakers. So if you're ready, let's kick it off.
I'm ready.
Okay, so single or married?
Married.
Okay, so did you tell us about your husband, and was he your first love or did it take a while?
Oh, well, that's a great question. My husband is Dan Shike, and we met while we were freshmen at Black Hawk College East Campus on the livestock judging team. And so we started dating partway through our freshman year, and we've been together ever since. Was he my first love? I mean, I think when you're young, sometimes you think you're in love or you're in love with the idea of somebody liking you, I guess. And so he definitely is my true love and my love. And I guess maybe when I was a kid, I thought, oh, I love this boy, but I'm not sure I did.
So dating your freshman year, did y'all stay together from freshman year all the way through college, or did y'all have some downtime?
No, we did. We did. I look back, we laughed about that a little bit. I mean, we kind of also were like, we can't have any drama in our relationship or that won't go well with our judging team. So we were pretty focused on our livestock judging experience, and we were just best friends. Like we started out as friends on the team for a while, and then it just kind of fell into something more. But no, we haven't taken any breaks, and we have our moments, but we've always been able to kind of talk through things and come to an agreement, I guess.
I love that. I'm going to go to the Black Hawk era a little bit later, but I don't want to get too far out of our intro. So tell us about your kids.
Well, we have 3 amazing kids. My daughter Olivia is sophomore at Black Hawk College East Campus now. Our son Hunter is a senior in high school, and our youngest Harper is a 6th grader.
Awesome. Okay. So on us, we like to ask some questions about your stress level. Right. Well, no, we're going to move on to that later. Right now, we want to talk about social media. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like Facebook?
Great question. I do use Facebook a lot. I would probably say it's an 8. I find like it's a way to keep me connected to a lot of different friends and family from all over. And so I appreciate that part of it.
Okay. How about Instagram? Are you on that?
I do. I love Instagram too. I probably would maybe rate Instagram a 9 because I feel like it's has a little bit more of a positive message than Facebook sometimes as far as the other stuff that I see. But I do use both quite a bit.
Awesome. That's interesting. So if you had to choose between the two, you like Instagram more?
Yeah, I do think I like Instagram more. but I like how I can organize some of my stuff on Facebook if that makes any sense at all. So I like both, but I probably lean towards liking Instagram more.
Yeah. Are you on TikTok or Snapchat?
I am not on TikTok. I look at TikTok sometimes. I am on Snapchat. I would not call myself a great user of Snapchat, but I think when you have children, you get Snapchat.
Yeah, that's the reason I have Snapchat. So, in your position, do you work from home or do you go into an office?
I work from home.
Okay. How tell us about that. Do you on a daily basis, would you say you get super fixed up or do you work all day and or do you have some flexibility to do some stuff with y'all's projects? Like what's a work from home and on a daily basis, how fixed up would you say you get?
Well, I think that has changed. I've been in this role with Farm Journal's Pork for 7 years, and I would say I am increasingly more and more on camera. And so I used to maybe be on camera, for a few meetings to where I felt like I needed to dress up maybe one or two times a week. And now it's almost every day. But I would say I vary throughout the day. So, like, I'm definitely wearing sweatpants or yoga pants on the bottom, and I have a nice shirt or, a jacket on top. And I do have to, because of that, I typically do my hair a little bit and do makeup every day. So I don't even know how to define that. Maybe five, because I'm halfway there and halfway not.
You know, well, that's a common answer. A lot of people say that, and a lot of people say 5. So I love that.
I could be better.
Yeah. Okay, so on a normal day, what time do you get up? I know as a mom and a working mom, you've got to have a lot of irons in the fire. You know, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? What does that look like for you?
Well, it's interesting. I would consider myself a morning person, but I think motherhood and life has caused me to be a bit more of a night owl. So I feel like I basically just don't get enough sleep. I go to bed probably around 11 ish, maybe later, and I get up around 6. I wish I got up at like 5 to get some of the things done and to beat the day, but I find I just can't unwind very well much before 11. So that's typically my schedule.
So I got to ask you this. I am not going to come out and ask your age, but because I think we're around the same age, but I'll just ask you this. What year did you graduate college?
I graduated from K State in 2000.
Okay, so we're 1 year apart. So I'm on a group text with all of my best friends from college, and literally just this morning, the topic was how little sleep we all get, and it was the common theme between all of us, and like I'm talking no sleep here. I think it's very common amongst our age demographic that you just do not get the good night's sleep like you really wish you could.
No, and you think it's bad when you have babies. People feel more sorry for you, or you get a little more help once in a while, or just something like, or else you just somehow you just do it because you have to. But I feel like I'm at this stage of life where I'm like, oh, I'll just push my limits all the time like I'm 20 and I'm not. And so I know sleep is really important. It's something that I aspire to be better at because I know it would help a lot of things, but right now it's just not my highest priority.
I know. I remember the days of like, back in the 2000s when I was like on the show road, like showing shorthorn cattle and I could literally, go out to dinner, go out and socialize till midnight or later and then still show up at the barn at 3 a.m. And I had no problem doing that and I actually looked fairly decent, I think. And now I need that 8 hours. I'm like 8 to 10 is my goal. Well, last icebreaker is on a scale of 1 to 10. What is your current stress level right now? I think, stress is something that affects a lot of women and girls, and maybe something that we don't talk about a lot. So, what's a normal stress level for you?
Well, I dread answering this because if you would have asked me, last week, I might have told you 10 a week ago because I was feeling pretty like maxed out on all the things. And I would say I feel better now, but even though I feel maybe like I've checked some things off the list, other things piled up, I do feel like I probably operate closer to a 7 more than I want to admit. it's like you kind of get used to that level of stress or intensity. It's hard to really define what stress is, but I feel like I have a little more stress than what I would call a 5 normal, if that makes sense.
I would say you're definitely a high performer, though. So you probably do well under stress.
I guess I probably agree with you, but who knows? Maybe I would be better if I wasn't. But I do feel like stress kind of motivates me and challenges me. And I think you make your own stress sometimes, right? I probably blame myself for some of the stress I feel is self-imposed. So
Thank you for that. We want to move into now our question of the episode. And for our listeners, a little background, we have a form on our website at Ranch House Designs where you can go to the Grit and Grace page and you can submit a question. It can even be anonymously. And we're getting some really good ones coming in. We're getting some from young girls and also some from other moms that are throwing out questions that I think they want to put out there and get some feedback from others, but maybe it's not the question that you do want to put in the group text. So one that we selected for you is I selected this one for you because you have two daughters and one that is in college. So is Olivia on the dating scene at all? She might be embarrassed if you ask this.
I feel like I can't answer any of these questions. It's like I have to be like, let's talk about hypotheticals here.
So let's just go with the question. I think this is a great one. So the question says, I am the mother of a teenage daughter, and I notice the way it seems most young men are approaching my daughter, possibly interested in dating her, is just by adding her on Snapchat and starting the conversation that way. And I don't see many of these young men making any effort to meet us as her parents or even show her much respect. Is this normal? And how do I help my daughter understand that a good possible boyfriend candidate is going to treat her with respect? Wow. My daughter's 14 and I can relate to this.
Yeah, I mean, great question, great topic. I am no expert in this category, but I as a mother of daughters and a son, I guess I just want to encourage young girls that the right boys will do the right things and they will make the right efforts, and the other ones are just not worth wasting your time with. I see the same thing. I do not understand, like, my kids have tried to explain, like, this means this, mom, this means that, she left me this, he left me that, I'm leaving them the, and I get really confused. I'm like, why don't you guys just pick up a phone and talk, or get together face to face and talk? Like, this is kind of ridiculous. There's so much guessing and just confusion in the messaging that I feel like it's like a communication nightmare. So, I would just say that recently my son went and talked to the parents of a girl that he wanted to take out on a date before he asked her on a date. I don't think that's normal, but I do think that young men do desire, to do the right things and need to treat girls with that respect. So maybe my son's had the advantage of having sisters on either side of him, to where he's kind of witnessed and seen some of that. I don't know. I don't even think that was something we really talked a whole lot about, but we've always tried to encourage our kids to treat everyone that they run into with the respect that they want to be treated with. And they're God's creation just as much as you are God's creation. And so, how we treat them matters. So
That is wonderful. And I love the perspective, that you do have a son and a daughter. And I think it's the parents' responsibility as well to, show what healthy relationships look like and how to treat either opposite sex with respect. I love that. It's so different for us as parents because even when I was in college, I'm sure you were the same way. I didn't have a cell phone even in college. Did you?
I had a bag phone in my car that I was not really allowed to use unless I was dying. And so one time I did use it and I got in trouble. I got lost and I got in trouble for using it because my dad couldn't help me get unlost. And he's, was like, this is not how we use the cell phone. So I just joke and tease him all the time about it because I'm like, that's what I thought a good use of the cell phone was. But it was certainly not to chit chat with anybody.
Right. Yeah, same here. So it's just a totally different scene right now. I love that. That was great advice. Well, let's move into our first topic, which is I really want to talk about your background, in your professional background, really in depth. And I kind of want to kick this off by setting the stage of saying that you mentioned you graduated college in 2000 and I graduated in 2001. And so we're right, and we both were interested in journalism and ag communication in livestock. And we were basically on the same career path, but we have never, I don't think we've ever met face to face because in that world, we kind of talked about it, there was no Facebook. So I'm sure we would have been lovely friends, but we didn't really have these ways to connect that people do now. But let's talk about your professional journey first, where you went to college, any internships that you had, and kind of how that led you to your professional path.
Sure. Well, I'm sure we would have been great friends. And I've always considered you somebody that I admire and really think you've done so many incredible things in our industry. But to your point, yeah, we were kind of doing it in different parts of the country, and there were not the same mechanisms to connect. Uh, I think back. So I guess for my college journey, I loved judging horses and livestock when I was in 4-H and FFA. And so that helped introduce me to Blackhawk. I was actually going to judge horses, but I used up all of my horse eligibility when I was maybe like my freshman and sophomore year of high school. So then I was kind of left with, well, I think I'm just going to really dive into livestock judging, which I love too. My background is more in the horse side of things growing up. And so that's just what I knew. So I got into livestock judging and it challenged me. It was a little bit harder sometimes. And for some reason, I just gravitated towards that. So I was all prepared to go to Blackhawk to judge horses. And I have so much respect for John Wolf. He was the horse judging coach at the time. And I just thought he was just right up there. He was just someone I really, really admired. And I was very excited to go judge for him. But that summer, I just really just kept getting that bug for livestock judging, kept doing more things, was on a really great team, had wonderful coaches. And that summer, Dan Shike, of all people, called me up on the phone and asked me to reconsider and that the livestock judging team, like, we really need you to be on the livestock judging team, Jennifer. So little did I know that he and Dan Hogue, it was kind of a concoction of Dan Hogue's, but I think it was a really great path for me to be on. So the good part of the story is I was able to judge livestock and I judged horses. I got to judge for John Wolf, which was a dream of mine. And I also got to judge for his daughter, Julie, when I went on to K-State. So I did work in a full year of judging horses in the middle of judging livestock. But, I'm really grateful that I stayed in the livestock judging because it's really led me to an exciting career in the livestock industry. And so, like I said, I went to Blackhawk for 2 years and then I transferred to Kansas State University. I went there to be in animal science with a communications option, but along the way I realized, there's this major called ag journalism. And I ended up getting a double major. So I majored in both, but it was quite challenging because I had a lot of classes to cram into 2 years at K-State, but I loved it and loved the science side of animal science so much. But I kept gravitating to communications and journalism and writing and fell in love with that while I was at K-State and had several great internships along the way. So, I can talk about my college, but I can also say one of the greatest learning opportunities for me was to just get out in the field. I interned with our local extension office between my freshman and sophomore year. I enjoyed it. And as you think about my future career path, that was a pretty important experience for me to have in just kind of running and managing events and programs. And then I went on to have an internship with the National Swine Registry with their magazine Seed Stock Edge. And while I was there, had the opportunity to put on the first junior swine show for the National Swine Registry, which we might get into later, and ultimately led to my first job. And then I went to work for Angus Journal one summer and had a really great experience developing my writing skills there. So I feel like those internships were really pivotal as well as my educational path.
I did those exact same internships, but I think we must have been a year off because, or well, no, I did not do the Angus Journal internship. I applied for the Angus Journal internship, but I'm wondering you might have got it the year that I applied. Do you remember what year?
Well, I was in 99.
Yeah, so I did that one year and then I applied for the Angus Journal internship and went up there and interviewed. Just the interview was amazing. I didn't actually get that one, but just going there was amazing. So, yeah, we have such a similar path. A couple of questions I wanted to ask. When you were at Blackhawk, were you and Dan on the same livestock team or y'all, is there a difference in age?
We were on the same team. So that's why he was trying to, get me to be on board there. Back then, like we did not know who was going to be on, we didn't know who our teammates were. I remember people kind of laugh about that. And we went to K-State, like we did not choose any of our colleges based on who was going to be going there, which is very unlike the generation today, I would say. It was really based on what college and what coach we wanted to be a part of, what fit our majors. It wasn't about what everybody was talking about on social media, but that's really changed. So,
Are you an Illinois native?
no, I'm from Washington, Iowa. So I was probably like 2.5 hours, a little bit more from Blackhawk. So not too far away, but yeah.
So when y'all went to K State, you were on the livestock judging team there, right?
Correct.
Who was y'all's coach then?
Dr. Scott Shockey was our coach. I really was drawn to him because I laugh just because I think it's just so much different now. But I remember him telling Dan and I, he was like, "Hey, we'd love to have you. And it will be great if you're here. But we'll also be great without you," or something like that. And I remember thinking, well, gee whiz, but I liked that about him. I liked that he just had so much confidence in the program and what K-State was doing that he was like, "We'd love to have you. But, I'm not going to grovel. We'll be fine without you too." And first, I just decided I'd show him he needed me. So,
Hi, I'm Kirby Fuchs, Vice President of Creative Services here at Ranch House Designs. Every new logo and website we create comes directly through me and our incredible team of project managers. As a farmer's wife, I understand how important it is to have someone guide you through the process and make it simple, stress-free, and professional. When you book a logo or website with RHD, you'll have a dedicated project manager walking alongside you every step of the way. Ready to get started? Request your free consultation at ranchhousedesigns.com.
So, not to ask, your full record, but you must have been doing pretty well in JUCO contests, for K-State to notice and recruit y'all, right?
I did have a really nice, track record, I guess. I'm proud of what I accomplished. Always wish I would have done better, right? Like it was never good enough, but yeah, I definitely had some success. We had a good team at Blackhawk, but back then I would also say too, like I would use the term recruit loosely. We laugh at, were we really recruited? I don't know. We started talking to him when we saw him, and he invited us to come for a visit, but it just is different than it is now. And I get why. I mean, livestock judging in college is different than it used to be, but I felt like you kind of went and visited the schools that you wanted to go to, and it wasn't so much of this huge like process of getting recruited. And it's different. I get that, but I don't know if I would say he really worked hard to recruit me, but I knew I had some teammates that were, so some of the students at Blackhawk that were a year ahead of us had went off to K-State. And so I had watched their journey, and, I looked at several colleges back then and weighed out all the differences. But for me, K-State obviously had a really great winning program at the time, but I also loved that they had some opportunities for me to combine my passion for animal science with communications. Little did I know I would get into the journalism side like I'd always wanted to, but I had trouble back then finding programs that combined both.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at that time, I don't really keep up with who's the top ag journalism programs now, but at that time, K State was definitely at the top. And I mean, it was amazing. You had such a great program. And I get what you're saying about recruiting because I did my undergrad at A&M, of course, but I went to Michigan State for my master's, and it wasn't a recruitment. It was more of like I was seeing the Michigan State team judging at all the major livestock shows, so we would go to Denver, Louisville with our shorthorns, and Dr. Ritchie would be the judge, or Dave Hawkins, or Brett Barber, who was managing the beef center there. And because of their presence at these major shows and in the beef industry, it made me want to go there. And so they didn't have to really recruit me. I just wanted to be affiliated with those people. And I think the same would be said, obviously, for Dr. Shockey. They had such a winning program. People were just naturally drawn to those programs.
Well, and it was such a different time too. I think it was the Hoosier Beef Congress. Is that even what it's called? I think that was the name of the show. But I remember going to watch him judge, and I think I literally filled up a notebook with everything he said. He said it on the mic, I wrote it down because I wanted to figure out how I could work in some of his terms and the things that he said into my reasons. And I feel like it was just kind of a different way of going about that whole process, a different way of learning. I've watched it evolve, having Dan coach for about 11 years. I watched how even he needed to change his approach when it came to recruiting. And I see how things are now with kids in that age. And so it's just a different beast, but I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to be exposed to K-State through livestock judging at Blackhawk. And, it was a really great fit for me at the time.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you helped establish the first National Junior Swine Show, which is amazing, but that program is so huge right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What motivated that? What all went into the planning? What was the thought process of that? And then obviously implementing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love this story because to me, it's such a reminder that we think we know what our plans are for our future, but God knows where He needs us to be. And I remember when I was at the National Swine Registry thinking at times, how am I going to become an editor of a livestock magazine? This is what I really want to do. I remember just, being worried, am I taking the right path? Is Seed Stock Edge and National Swine Registry, is that going to get me there? It doesn't seem like there's that many opportunities in the swine industry because admittedly there aren't as many publications in the swine industry as compared to the cattle industry, right? So, I had my doubts and questions. And then while I was there, Daryl Anderson, who was the CEO at the time, said, hey, would you and Daryl Real want to work on putting together this little junior swine show? We're going to have a show for kids in conjunction with our summer type conference. We'd like to have some activities for kids and have this junior show. And so it just kind of kept evolving. But Daryl Real and I spent countless hours in the evenings cutting out all the things for the skillathon, organizing what even is the skillathon, how are we going to use what other, at the time we modeled it after Ohio State University, try to figure out, how we were going to do all the contests, how we're going to divide the classes. I mean, just all those little things were all done in pretty much my after work hours because my internship was the magazine. So it was kind of this ginormous side project, but I really had no life outside of my internship because I was in Indiana, away from home. I, didn't have anywhere else to go. So I just poured myself into it. When I went back to K-State, when I went off to K-State, I guess that fall, Daryl asked me to come work for him again the next summer and run the show again. And I was like, oh, I really feel like I need to do an internship and I'm really hoping I can get on with Angus Journal. I did. Daryl still kept trying to get me to come back for the week of the show. I wasn't able to, but I did help from afar. So I helped the people that ran the show that summer. But then I remember it was right after Louisville, when I was a senior in college, Daryl called me and offered me the position of I believe it was website coordinator, junior manager of junior programs or something. I can never even remember it because it could really not fit on 2 lines of a business card. It was ridiculous. They didn't know how to get me there, and he wanted me to run this junior program and build it from the ground up. But we had to convince this board of predominantly older men that like this is what we need to do. And so they tacked on all this website stuff, which was, again, this is 2000, and this is when we are just like front page and all those things with websites. It was so, I didn't even have any clue how to do a website. That was not what I went to school to do. So I remember when I did say yes to this job, because I knew that it would also be kind of in the right area of where Dan and I were going to be going, with him going to grad school at the University of Illinois. I just thought, if I can survive this for a couple of years, it won't look bad on my resume. It'll look like I gave it a shot. Well, needless to say, I did help with the website. I did manage our website for a while, but that quickly came off and eventually merged into director of junior activities. And we were able to build the National Junior Swine Association from a summer show for kids into a really great program that I'm incredibly proud of, and incredibly grateful for all of the people who have poured energy and time and money and, you know, belief in over the years, because I consider it like my first kid. I really had a hard time leaving the National Swine Registry, but felt like when at the certain point, you know, I had a baby and a 2-year-old that I was trying to balance with grandparents who lived 4 hours away or 2 hours away. And it just was not working very well for me to be the mom that I felt called to be and to be the employee that I knew they deserved. So I kind of hit this point where it was like, you know what, before this gets to be a challenge, I think I'm going to need to proactively move on to something that's better for my life stage as a mom. But saying goodbye to NSR is probably one of the hardest things I've done in my life because it meant so much to me.
Yeah, I love that. And you really allude to so many things that this is the whole reason we started this podcast, is to talk about things like the work-life balance, or you're choosing your first job, you know. So I love that you shared that. Trying to put a frame of reference on here. Do you remember what year that would have been?
When I started at NSR, it was the summer of 2000, and I got married that summer. So I kind of like went to work, took a month off for my wedding, came back, and was there ever since. I left in December of 2009.
I'm such a nerd. Do you know that website called the Wayback Machine, where you can go back and pull up a website at any point in time?
No.
Oh my gosh, yes. So it's called like Wayback Machine, and you can pull up a URL, and it will, like, I pulled up National Swine, and it has 534 captures from January 1999 to present. So I pulled it up in 2000 because, you know, this was right when I was starting Ranch House Design. So I'm very familiar with, you know, what all of these websites look like. It looks to me like it was built in frames, like it had a left frame and it's like all text based. There's not hardly any pictures. It has a hit counter at the bottom. It's not bad because it's, you know, it was very good for that time, you know. So Junior Association is like showing up here over on the side. I love that.
Well, I mean, so not only was I doing, you know, managing all the content and putting everything onto the website and trying to figure out what the heck are we doing with the website, but I was also, so our membership was growing. So we started off with like, basically we built our members around this core group of like kids who came to the first show in 98. And so then, you know, we created a little brochure. I made a brochure. We had a membership, you know, form that they filled out. And then I hand entered in thousands and thousands of addresses and names. And in the beginning, I have a weird, like, I can still remember some kids' hometowns and where they were from, or, you know, just strange things about their registration, because I entered all those things in by hand. And as time went on, you know, we were able to hire some help for me. So I wasn't doing all of those things anymore. Instead, I was trying to raise money and, you know, build scholarship programs. But in the beginning, it was so like get onto the website. managing system and just enter in every word by hand. So
Well, this brings me to another question I had, because I remember those hand enter data, and you probably remember this too, of scanning in photos for magazines, because like digital photography didn't exist, so you had to get the 3x5s and scan them in on a flatbed scanner, and that was miserable. So my topic I want to ask you about is AI. Are you using AI in your professional life at all now to automate any things like that?
well, I'll be honest that I just got done organizing a conference where we talked about AI again. I've been a part of lots of conversations over it, but I have struggled with AI as a writer because I know AI is not replacing your abilities as a writer, but in some ways it is. In some ways it's changing how we do things as writers. When you pride yourself on trying to be creative or unique or different, and then something comes in to try to automate that creativity to where more people can level up to that point. I don't know if that makes sense. It becomes I admit that there's times I'm like, I don't know what I think about this. However, I know that it's a tool that can be used, like lots of tools in all of this world, to help us be more efficient and to spend more time doing the things that we love, and make it more efficient for the things that we don't. So do I use it a lot? I'm not going to sit on here and pretend that I do, because I don't. I have struggled with it. I'm starting to use it more. I use a headline analyzer often, where I will take my headlines I write, run it through the analyzer. And if I don't hit a certain mark as far as how good it thinks my headline is, then I'll try again until I get to something that scores well that I also like. I am not using it to write any of my stories.
Oh, I can't stand seeing ChatGPT written content on social media. I don't even want to go into this topic because it makes me so. But you and I were both in the era. I hate to keep talking about the old times, but I mean, when I learned how to type on a typewriter, and even when I was writing at Michigan State, some of the writing was on a typewriter, and the mental, I guess I don't want to say mental strength, but the mental organization it takes to be able to write something off the cuff, just put in a sheet of paper and write a press release with minimal errors and minimal revisions. That is a skill that I am super proud of. And if today, if someone's like, I need a social media content calendar, I can sit down and write that. And I'm proud of the writing skills. And I worry that that might be a skill that people lose because they're relying too heavily on Chat GPT.
100%. I think about that with my children too. But why would you not, for some of these kids, why would you not take advantage of those tools if everybody else is? And if you're, like, it's a hard thing, but I also have remind my kids, anybody that I can, like, being able to write is so important. And yes, to your point, it's not perfect and it's far from that. And there's no way you can just, like, people will see through that. I think the authenticity, the voice, the genuine contributions that, like, our intelligence and our minds put into writing will always have value. And so I do think there's ways that I could use it better to save time. But I will also say we're at this point where I haven't found that it understands agriculture all that well. And when I use some different AI tools, as far as even transcribing, I mean, it does not understand what is it. Swine is always something else. It's never swine. Sow is never sow. So, in my mind, I'm like, there's some things we can do to make AI work better for agriculture, because there's some big gaps there. So it's easier and faster for me to use my own mind than to rely and have to fix something else. But I know I need to evolve.
Mine is always bull, Bull. It transcribes to bowl, Bowl, and it could be my accent, but that's the one I get. Well, let's move into the topic of girl life. I would say, our whole theme of this podcast is grit and grace. So we like to talk about women who are hardworking and aren't afraid to sit there and hand enter 1,000 entries from the National Swine Registry into a spreadsheet, but also women who are kind and help others and encouraging. And so we like to sort of wind down the episode with this topic. So would you start by sharing, I mean, just in general throughout your career, would you say that there are times that you've ever felt like you were maybe underestimated as a woman, or maybe on the other hand felt like you got some opportunities for being a woman, and how did you handle those?
I feel like our generation probably didn't get that many extras because we were a woman. And I think that's different now. I feel like I was still in a time when it was sort of, I don't know if I would say discriminated against, but I went into a lot of really tough board meetings at the National Swine Registry. And these are people that are friends today, people that I admire, people that I respect, but they were not easy. And if you talk to my close circle of people who really stood by me and supported me during that time, and a lot of those, I mean, let's just be honest, like the purebred swine industry, especially at that time, was predominant. I mean, it's predominantly men. So I was often the only woman in the room, or maybe, maybe one of our staff members was a woman that was there. But I sat at a table with men most of the time. And there was a lot of, and I was young. I was young and I was a woman, and there was a lot of what does she know? And I was proposing ideas and things that we had not done before. And so there was a lot of underestimation, I think is a good word, of what did I had to prove myself all the time. So I feel like I definitely had this mentality that I've probably earned over the years because I had to do this, of just this, like, I'm going to prove to you that I can. And sometimes I wish that I could just let go of that and just be like, you have proven enough. You don't have to keep proving. But I still struggle with that because it's just all I knew when we started. And so I've had to learn how to get mentally tougher. I had to learn how to channel my emotions better, because I am like, if I get mad, the tears come. And if you see me get teary, it's usually because I'm frustrated. And so there was a lot of like having to take a moment in the bathroom and get my composure together and go back out. But I'm not going to lie and pretend like people didn't see a few tears on my face throughout those first, 10 years when I was at the National Swine Registry. I had a wonderful boss. He was so supportive of me, but he could not fight my battles. I had to go like on those front lines on my own, and I had to be my own person and prove that I deserved a seat at the table. And it's interesting, I think, how many come back to me today and say things like, bring it up and almost apologize that they were hard on me back then. But I feel like that's a little different now. I think there's more women at the table. And I think there's more sensitivities around that. I think things are a lot different. I also went from the National Swine Registry to going to the University of Illinois. And I guess, didn't really talk about that yet, but I worked as a science writer. And then I moved into this director of communications and marketing role. And so while I was there, women had a much different place at the table. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I would definitely say yes. I feel like I had that at times. And then I kind of had this place where it was completely different.
Well, I just want to say I'm teary right now because that was so good. What you said was good. When you said it was different at Illinois, it, I observed that when I worked at Michigan State. At that time, many of those breed associations, cattle associations, swine associations, they are primarily men, and women on the team, may be in a role of like an admin assistant, but they, 25 years ago, they were not maybe making the decisions. But when I was at Michigan State writing in our ag journalism department, they had a whole team of writers for the extension service, and I think they were all women. And so it was a very professionally ran organization, but it was the opposite. It was all women and all professional women, and very disciplined women who were very strong in their profession. For me, I loved that. I loved that type of environment.
Yeah, for sure. And I almost think it's more of how women in agriculture have evolved. I feel like in those early 2000s, some strong women were rising up, but there weren't as many women, but more women were getting interested in that field. And then I just feel like, I look at even looking at university animal science programs today. I mean, they are 70, 80, 90% female. That wasn't the case when we were students. That has evolved. In almost every, like, the professional organizations I'm in are very strongly female. We don't have as many men in them anymore. I've just seen this shift. But when we talk about, I guess I feel like there was also this understanding and like almost a focus on women being a bit of a minority, I don't, for lack of a better word, at the university. And so women almost got more advantages. Like I feel like my husband sometimes is more disadvantaged in the climate at the university because of his race and his, that he's a man. So I don't know, I guess I just think, yeah, back then agriculture is evolving and shifting. Women, there's tons of opportunities for women. There's a lot of women who are in it that are passionate about it. And so I just think it's a great place for young girls to go to. And I'm really glad that I had the experience I had because it made me who I am, but it's different.
I feel very emotional right now. I'm just saying that because I'm kind of thinking through, some of my early career stuff, like with you. And today, I think a lot of people, when they think of journalism or ag journalism or social media, they kind of instantly think, well, that's a girl job. That's a job for women. But it hasn't always been this way because for a long time that field was male driven, not social media, but journalism or the magazine field reps or the breed field reps, they were all male positions. And so you have definitely fought a lot of battles and laid a lot of groundwork for the women who are doing it today. I really just would say thank you. And I have too. We both done it. We've both been there together, but thank you for doing that. And that is wonderful. This wonderful advice that you just gave.
Well, thank you.
So I'm kind of wrapping up because we're almost at the hour-long mark, which is it's gone by really fast. If you were not doing the job you're doing now, this is a fun question. What would be your fallback, like, dream job if you weren't in the journalism or writing or sphere? What would you be doing?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to admit what I think would be fun to do if I had the ability to do it more. I think I would love to be a professional Christian speaker, or maybe I don't know. I don't even know what the word is, but I would love to. I love opportunities to visit with different groups. So I love when I get, like, I'm going to speak to a group of K-State students this week. I love the opportunities to just share with others, but I love talking about my faith, and I think that would be really fun to be able to just do that unabashedly and go around and talk to people about my journey, my story, but also like inspire and encourage and support others. So
I love that. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot, but would you mind sharing a bit of that? And maybe I'll share a little bit too, but our family is rooted so strong in faith, and without God's plan in our life, we would be nothing. But anybody who knew me 20 years ago knew that I was not like that. I spent a lot of times, like, at the stock shows. I drank heavily. I dated, you know, dated without in really any real intention. I look back at myself 20 years ago, and it was not a person that I was proud of, but thankful for faith and forgiveness and the ability to turn things around. But Have you always felt this way about your faith journey, or was there a moment that changed things for you, if you would share?
Well, one thing I would say is that I remembered having conversation with my mom where I said, I'd love to, like, we went to a women of faith conference. And I remember saying, I wish I could be up there talking about Jesus with people. But I said, I don't have a great story. And my mom said to me, she said, you do have a great story and you're building your story every day. And she said, that's what people need, is just people who aren't afraid to be authentic and real about what they're going through. So do I have an incredible, crazy story? Not really. And then maybe the answer actually is yes, I really do have a great story. Well, I don't know. I don't know how you would define it, but I grew up in a Christian home. When I was 8 years old, I was able to listen to, this is so silly, a puppet show came and like did a little thing at our church one night. And I remember them talking about, this is what it means to ask Jesus into your heart. And I remember being in that moment thinking, I want to do that. I want that. And as much as my 8-year-old self absorbed and understood that, I went up front and I asked Jesus to be in my heart, and I went home, and I've never felt, sorry, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. I've just never felt alone since, even in a lonely world that we all live in, right? Like I'm so grateful that I was able to have a relationship with Jesus at a young age, because I think it helped me weather and navigate the crap of life. I don't know how to say it any nicer, really. I mean, I think life is hard and full of ups and downs. I just always had a realization in me that there's something more. Like, yeah, this is not easy right now, but there's something to look forward to. You have hope of what's ahead. And so while my story may not be, I was doing this and God saved me, which I think are some of the most beautiful stories that just show the amazing redemptive power of Jesus, I had a story that was just like, thanks for keeping me out of trouble. And I'm not saying I've lived a perfect life. Let me be clear. I make so many mistakes, but I'm also not afraid to talk about the things that I screw up or the things I do wrong, because I want everybody to know that He is bigger than all of those things that we fall down and do, because we live in a fallen world. And so I don't mean to get too deep here, but I guess I would just say, like, my story is a story of Jesus being a part of my life for a long time. And I'm really grateful to have been able to be parts of lots of groups. I think that one of the most important things we can do is find people to walk with us in our journey. I don't think we were made to be Christians in a silo by any means. We're made to be out there and have people around us supporting us, and also for us to be supporting them. And so I'm really grateful that I've been an active small group leader in my church. My husband and I led couples groups for many years. Right now, I'm focusing on being a leader of a women's group at my church, but I've also had an online group of women that I've led and maintained for probably, we're always like 15 to 20 years. It's probably close to 20 years now. And we've done a lot of life together, and we've talked about a lot of hard stuff together. And I think that's like the cool part about of having a relationship with God, is that, I don't know, it's just that, like, the realness and the authenticity and the vulnerability that you have in that just helps you in so many areas of your life. And so I don't know that my story is really that crazy, but it's a story of a lot of gratitude and thankfulness that I grew up in a family that allowed me to go to church.
You are wonderful. And so I want to ask, this is a very difficult question that I personally struggled with when I was trying to sort of make the change from my old life to my new life, is how do you navigate this in the stock show world? Because we know that there's so many wonderful things in the stock show world, but there are pressures, maybe to party a little bit, or exposure to kids and alcohol, or maybe the pressure to do some unethical things. If there is someone listening to this and it's hitting them like, hey, I'm on the wrong track right now and I want to get on a better track, what would you tell them?
You can just change your track. Like the really great thing about Jesus in how I view it is that he knows like all of the struggles and the temptations that are out there. And the reason why he doesn't want us to get caught up in some things is because they're not good for us. But we live in a world that tries to convince us that we'll feel better and we'll enjoy life more if we do things this way. But the reality is that that's just a lie. And I've been in lots of situations where I'm like, oh gosh, like what do I do? And I feel like he's never too far away. And no matter how I screw up, or, whether I screw up or whether I make the right choice, like God's there. And so I just encourage young people. I'm like, go try, go find Jesus, go walk towards him, go walk towards making the right decisions. And he's going to meet you there. There's nothing that any of us have done or could do that would make him not love us. And I just think we live in a world where that's not the reality for hardly anyone, right? Like everything is conditional, even though we try not to have conditional love. We all don't really understand unconditional love. Only God can give the unconditional love. And that's how he feels about us. So I just, there's a lot of hard things out there that young people face. But the truth is that God wants what's best for us. And when we try to seek after what he says, is the path for us, I feel like he shows up in that. And if we get off the path, it's not too hard to get back to him. He's not far away.
I love that. So your message is it's never too late. You can, and there's nothing too bad that you can't turn around.
Absolutely.
Well, Jennifer, this is not how I expected really this to wrap up, but I have to say this is amazing. No offense to our other guests, but this is really, really good. This is wonderful content. This is exactly why we started this podcast. So I do want to deviate a little bit from our schedule because normally we wrap up with like the question of what is your favorite mascara, but in this, I feel like that sounds kind of stupid after the really meaningful, impactful conversation that we had. But do you have a favorite brand of mascara that you do want to share?
I might need some more mascara now. Did your mascara survive a little bit of a tear session? I don't know. I have a long time, this is love Mary Kay's Ultimate Mascara. It's just a simple, solid mascara. But I was introduced to Smashbox Super Fan, and I don't know why that's my new favorite right now, but right now that's the one I gravitate to.
Okay, so guess what? You and I just became best friends because I also use Mary Kay. Love that mascara. It is amazing. Gosh. Well, this has been so wonderful, and I cannot thank you enough. You exemplify grit and grace, the theme of our podcast, and you are exactly what I want my daughters to be like. And I just can't say thank you enough for sharing the professional insights and as well as the personal insights. You are amazing.
Well, I don't know about that, but I really do appreciate what you're doing with this. And I want you to know that the work that you do to try to inspire and encourage the next generation, and particularly of women, is noticed and felt and appreciated. And I just think more and more of us need to step into that calling to try to be a voice to help them see that they're needed in this industry and that there's a place for them and that there's people who are here to help them along the way, because I wouldn't be where I am at today without people who did that for me. And I wouldn't be where I am today without Jesus. And so those are the things that at the end of the day, I just hope people know that I'm always here and I'm never too busy for anyone. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on here.
This is wonderful. And for our listeners, again, thank y'all so much for listening. We hope y'all have a great day and we hope you are inspired by this podcast.